Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something really important with me today.
Absolutely. Always ready to go deep.
We're tackling a crisis that's, frankly, difficult to even wrap your head around the situation in Sudan. We're talking about a displacement crisis even bigger than Syria's was at its peak. Just try to imagine millions and millions of lives completely upended, forced from their homes, facing unimaginable hardship.
Yeah, it's a story that often gets lost in the news cycle, but one that absolutely deserves our attention, our understanding, our action, hopefully.
For sure. And, with a crisis this complex, we need all the help we can get to make sense of it. So we've got three incredible sources to guide us today.
Lay it on me.
First up, we're tuning into a debate, a kind of heated debate, actually, from the EU Parliament. They're grappling with their own role in this crisis, what they could have done differently, what responsibility they bear, and they don't hold back.
Oh, interesting. I'm always curious to see how those kinds of discussions play out. It's easy to point fingers from afar, but what are they actually saying about their own actions?
You're going to be surprised, I think, because they do point fingers, but at themselves, too. I mean, Vergerova, the VP of the European Commission, she didn't mince words. She straight up called Sudan the largest displacement crisis in the world. No sugarcoating there.
And she's not wrong, unfortunately. But those words, they pack a punch, right? It's one thing to say displacement. It's another to picture it. 10.9 million people internally displaced. That's like, what, the entire population of Belgium on the move inside their own country, just trying to find a safe haven.
Exactly. And then you've got another 2.2 million who've managed to escape to neighboring countries, which of course puts a huge strain on those nations too.
It's a domino effect. You can't have that kind of mass movement of people without it impacting the entire region.
Right, it ripples outward. But what really struck me about this debate, and I think this is where it gets really interesting, is how the EU Parliament grapples with its own role in all of this. It wasn't just about acknowledging the crisis, it was about acknowledging their own failings.
Oh, now that's what I'm talking about. It's so easy for governments and institutions to just throw money at a problem and call it a day, but to actually examine their own policies, their own potential culpability, that takes some guts.
It really does. And MEP Barry Andrews, he didn't hold back. He straight up called out the EU's development policies in Sudan. His argument was basically, look, we've poured years of aid and development projects into Sudan, but it hasn't translated into the kind of stability that could have prevented this.
That's a tough pill to swallow, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's an important conversation to have. What good is aid if it's not addressing the root causes of the problem?
Exactly. And he was even more specific, criticizing the EU's focus on border control and migration management. He said those policies actually undermine Sudan's path to peace and prosperity.
Wow, so he's saying they were so focused on keeping migration out of Europe that they missed the bigger picture of what Sudan needed to thrive.
Right. And then, as if that wasn't enough, MEP Maria Walsh jumps in and drops another bombshell, famine. And she's not talking about the future, she's saying it's happening right now.
Hold on, famine. Like, officially declared.
Officially declared. The only famine declared in the world right now, she points out. And her warning is stark. 2.5 million people could die by the end of the year if things don't change, like, drastically.
That's terrifying. We're talking about a humanitarian catastrophe of unimaginable proportions.
Right. And to really understand what led to this point, we need a little context. This conflict in Sudan, it didn't just pop up overnight. It's been brewing for decades. You've got political instability, economic hardship, deep-rooted ethnic tensions. Well, it's like a tinderbox just waiting for a spark.
And that spark came in April of 2023, right? The attempted military coup.
You got it. April 2023, everything changes. A military coup attempt throws the country into chaos. And at the heart of it is this power struggle between the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAFF, and a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF.
So you've got the regular army and then this, like a rogue faction with its own agenda.
Basically, the RSF, they're notorious for their brutality, and their involvement just throws gasoline on an already raging fire.
And where is this fighting concentrated? I imagine the capital, Khartoum, is at the center of it all.
Absolutely. Khartoum, the Darfur region, places that have already seen so much violence and displacement. The fighting has just decimated these areas, forcing millions to flee, pushing the country to the brink.
It's heartbreaking. And this is why we can't just get lost in the politics of it all. This isn't some abstract geopolitical chess game. We're talking about real people, real families, caught in the crossfire, bearing the brunt of these power struggles.
Which is a perfect point to shift gears and really delve into the human cost of this conflict. And for that, we turn to our next source, A stark warning from the UN. I mean, the UN report, it doesn't sugarcoat anything. It lays bare the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Sudan, and the numbers are, honestly, they're hard to even fathom. Over 25 million people, that's more than half the country's population, are in desperate need of food and healthcare. Half the country. Just let that sink in for a second.
It's almost beyond comprehension, isn't it? To think of that many people struggling just to survive, to meet their most basic needs. It speaks volumes about the collapse of essential services, of the very systems that are meant to support a population.
And it's not just about the scarcity of food and medicine, it's about the cascading effects of that scarcity. The UN report, it highlights this terrifying surge in cholera cases. We're talking rates skyrocketing by almost 40% in just 2 weeks. 40%. It's like watching a wildfire spread.
And cholera, it's one of those things that thrives in chaos. It spreads through contaminated water, contaminated food, and when you have so many displaced people living in cramped, often unsanitary conditions, it becomes almost impossible to contain.
It's a perfect storm, isn't it? The conflict disrupts water sources, disrupts sanitation systems, forces people into overcrowded camps, and then boom, this highly contagious, potentially deadly disease emerges. It creates this vicious cycle of vulnerability.
You're right, it's a vicious cycle. And the saddest part is, cholera is preventable. With access to clean water, with proper sanitation, with basic health care, it's completely preventable. But in Sudan, those things have become luxuries, even in the capital city. The UN report, it states that 75% of healthcare facilities in Khartoum are non-functional. Imagine that. You need medical attention, maybe your child is sick, maybe you've been injured, and the hospital, the clinic, it's just not there. It's closed, it's abandoned, there's no one to help.
It's a terrifying thought. We take those things for granted. Hospitals, clean water, but in a conflict zone, they can vanish overnight. And if that's the situation in Khartoum, a major city, I can only imagine how dire things are in more remote regions. Places like Darfur, which, let's not forget, were already facing immense challenges even before this recent conflict erupted.
Exactly, and the UN report confirms those fears. It paints a picture of a healthcare system on the verge of utter collapse, particularly in those regions. We're not even just talking about cholera or battlefield injuries. It's maternal health care. It's chronic illnesses. It's basic vaccinations. It's the entire foundation of a functioning healthcare system crumbling away.
It's millions of lives hanging in the balance. And this is why I'm so grateful we have the third source, the report from Open Doors, because it takes us out of the realm of statistics and into the heart of the human experience. We get to meet Aliyah, a mother living in a refugee camp in South Sudan. She fled Khartoum with her children back in April 2023, right when the fighting escalated. Reading her account, it just stayed with me.
I can imagine. It's one thing to talk about millions displaced. It's another to hear it from someone who lived it, who fled their home with nothing but the clothes on their back, not knowing what the future holds.
And for Aliyah, the story doesn't end there. Her account, it captures that daily struggle for survival in the camps, the constant fear, the gnawing hunger. She talks about the meager rations, the inadequate aid, and the impossible choices she faces, choices no parent should ever have to make. Like steal food from nearby farms to feed her children or watch them go hungry. How do you even begin to weigh those options?
It's the kind of dilemma that just underscores the desperation of the situation. These aren't choices, they're impossible dilemmas, and they're being faced by millions across Sudan.
And then there are the conditions in the camp. The lack of basic sanitation, overflowing latrines, the constant fear of disease spreading like wildfire. It's like that cholera statistic, that 40% increase. It's not just a number anymore. It's a very real threat lurking in the shadows of that camp, preying on the most vulnerable.
Exactly. It takes those statistics and breathes life into them, giving them a face, a story. It's no longer just data, it's Aliyah's reality.
And yet, what struck me most about her story, amidst all the hardship, all the despair, was her faith. She talks about her faith, about clinging to it as an anchor in the storm, about finding solace and purpose in her belief, even when everything around her seems to be falling apart. It's hard to comprehend, isn't it? The immense suffering and this wellspring of faith.
It is. It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, to the power of hope, even in the darkest of times. It's something we don't talk about enough, I think, when we discuss conflict and crisis. We focus on the devastation, and rightfully so. But we often forget about that inner strength, that unwavering belief in something bigger than ourselves that allows people to keep going.
It makes you think, doesn't it? What would I hold on to if I were in her shoes? If everything around me was crumbling, where would I find that kind of strength, that kind of hope?
It's a humbling thought for sure. And I think it speaks to something really profound about the human experience. We talk about resilience, coping mechanisms, but Aliyah's story, It goes beyond that. It's about finding meaning, purpose, even in the face of unimaginable loss. And for her, that meaning, that wellspring, it comes from her faith.
And it makes your story all the more powerful because of it, you know? It's
Good.
not just about survival, it's about something more. It's a testament to the power of faith to sustain us even when everything else feels hopeless.
Absolutely. It's proof that even in the darkest corners of human experience, hope finds a way. But it also begs the question, why should we care? Why should we care about a conflict happening halfway around the world? What does this crisis in Sudan have to do with us here in our own lives?
It's easy to feel that way, right? Like, oh, another global crisis, another reason to feel overwhelmed and helpless.
It's a natural response, for sure. But here's the thing. Sudan's crisis, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. The ripple effects of this conflict, they reach far beyond its borders.
You're talking about the regional instability, the refugee crisis that's unfolding.
Exactly. Think about it. Millions of people displaced, desperate for safety, for opportunity. It puts an incredible strain on neighboring countries, many of which are already facing their own challenges.
It's like a chain reaction almost. Instability just breeds more instability.
You got it. And that instability can lead to a whole host of other issues. Increased migration, human trafficking, the rise of extremist groups who exploit vulnerable populations. These are all very real consequences of a conflict like we're seeing in Sudan.
And then, of course, there's the humanitarian aspect. We can't ignore the sheer scale of suffering happening right now. Millions facing hunger, disease, displacement. It's overwhelming. But if we turn a blind eye to it, to this level of crisis, what does that say about us, about our values as a global community?
It's a question of moral responsibility, absolutely. But it goes beyond that, too. Ignoring a crisis of this magnitude, a crisis with the potential for such widespread regional destabilization, not to mention human suffering, it's not just morally wrong, it's strategically short-sighted.
So where do we even begin? What can we do in the face of something so complex, so seemingly insurmountable?
It's a question a lot of people ask, and it's easy to feel powerless. But honestly, awareness, true understanding, that's the first step. That's what we've tried to do today. Understand the complexities of this conflict, the human cost, the potential consequences. And from there, we can start exploring ways to make a difference.
So it's about channeling that feeling of this is awful, which it is, into something constructive, something actionable.
Exactly. And there are things we can do. Supporting organizations, providing aid on the ground, that's huge.
Yep.
Donating to reputable charities, advocating for increased humanitarian assistance, even just raising awareness within our own circles. These are all actions within our reach.
It's about identifying those pressure points, those leverage points where we can actually affect change.
And never underestimate the power of informed action, no matter how small it might seem. Every voice raised, every dollar donated, every conversation started, it all contributes to a collective response. And those collective responses, they can and do make a difference.
If you've been moved by Aaliyah's story, and I know I have, we encourage you to learn more. You can find the full report from Open Doors on their website. We'll be sure to link it in the show notes. It's a powerful read, and it might just inspire you to take action, to lend your voice, your support to those who need it most. Because even in the face of overwhelming crisis, even when it seems like the world is falling apart, there's always hope. And more importantly, there's always something we can do, something you can do to help put the pieces back together.